Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, thank you for inviting me to join Women in Tech Summit. A few months ago, I had the opportunity to spend time aboard the International Space Station as the part of the Ignis mission. Looking at Earth from orbit is an extraordinary experience. You see how interconnected our world really is, and how many of the challenges we face are shared by all of us. When people think about space, they often think about rockets, astronauts, and spectacular launches. What I saw during the mission reminded me that space is really about people, knowledge, and technology. During Ignis, we carried out 13 experiments prepared by Polish scientists, universities, and companies. These projects covered medicine, human physiology, material science, artificial intelligence, and advanced data processing. Each experiment represented years of work by teams who wanted to test their ideas in one of the most demanding environments available. For many of those teams, the mission was an important milestone. In the space sector, proving that technology works in orbit can significantly increase its credibility and open opportunities for future missions and international cooperation. A successful experiment on the ISS often becomes the foundation for future products, services, and research programs. This is one of the reasons why space activities matter far beyond the space sector itself. Satellite technologies help us monitor natural disasters, understand environmental changes, support emergency services, and protect critical infrastructure. They provide information that governments, institutions, and businesses use every day. Reliable data and reliable communications have become essential elements of resilience and security. Europe has built capabilities in this area through programs such as Copernicus and Galileo. These systems support millions of users and demonstrate how investments in space and technology create practical benefits for society. None of this would be possible without talented people working across many different disciplines. Engineers, scientists, software developers, medical researchers, cybersecurity specialists, entrepreneurs, and policy experts, they all contribute to the success of the space ecosystem. This is why events like this are so important. The future of technology will depend on diverse teams bringing together different experiences, perspectives, and ideas. We need more people choosing careers in science, engineering, and data analysis, artificial intelligence, and space technologies. We also need to ensure that talented women see these fields as places where they can grow, lead, and make an impact. One of the most valuable lessons from the Ignis mission was seeing how much can be achieved when universities, research organizations, companies, and public organizations work towards a common goal. The mission demonstrated the capabilities that already exist in Poland and showed what becomes possible when those capabilities are given the opportunity to grow. I hope that some of the young people following today's discussions will become scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs who will shape the next generation of European innovation. The future is yours, and the future is created today. Look around to the colleagues who participate to these discussions. It's you who will shape the future of technologies and how these technologies are going to look like. Thank you.
So once again, my name is Marta Krywanis. I'm working from Frontex, and you may think why European Border and Coast Guard Agency, what it has to do with space. Actually a lot, and we are chairing this panel because at Europe's border, we see the world changing in real time. And space is the only domain that let us understand that change at the speed it happens. But here is the twist. Space alone doesn't deliver innovation. People do, ecosystems do, partnership do, innovation do, financing do. And because of that, I would like to welcome on stage the panelists of today that is a great mixture of all these features I just mentioned. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome on stage Katarzyna Dobisz from European Investment Bank. She's an investment officer advising the EIC fund on deep tech equity investment with 15 years of experience in venture capital, M&A, and strategic finance. Please take a seat. Another panelist is Ms. Gema Maza, the Deputy Head of Operations at SATSEN, the first woman in this role, with 2 decades supporting EU decision-making through Earth observation-based intelligence for crisis management and EU missions. Dr. Anna Fogtman from European Space Agency, leading radiation protection operations for astronauts on the ISS, so she knows Sławosz very well, and future lunar missions, working at the intersection of space medicine, engineering, and exploration. And Justyna Redelkiewicz, founder of Go Cosmic and Hazel 3 Partners, strategist, investor, and former leader of the 1 billion Cassini Fund initiative, now shaping entrepreneurship and dual-use innovation across Europe. So we will talk about space today. And you can see the gravity works. So, ladies, so to start us off, I would like to ask each of you a general question with a very brief answer, if possible. So in your view, what forces or conditions most shape Europe's ability to turn space into real-world security innovation? Justyna, if we can start.
Thank you, Marta. Okay. Thank you for this question. So what are the shapes that usually impact most the business? Is the client, is the customer, is the demand. So this is what happened, actually, that we've been building this space infrastructure for many years, but the demand was slowly catching up. So imagine that space is a critical infrastructure, and imagine that in the last years we were building a highway. It could be a highway, for example, from Białystok to Suwałki, right? It's not the most, let's say, desired region to have a highway, and so, but the infrastructure was there. And all of a sudden, there is a crisis situation at the border with Lithuania, and this highway becomes a critical asset, and everybody wants it. And this is a little bit what happened with space. So space was developed over many years. Copernicus data were available for the last 10 years, and maybe a few percent was really used in many, many different applications across sectors, but it was not a priority. Companies were thinking, okay, let's adopt AI, let's adopt other technologies, but space is something futuristic, something that doesn't really touch me. And then all of a sudden, we have a crisis situation, and we see what's going on in Ukraine. Without satellite communication, without Earth observation, this conflict would look completely different. And so this is what is happening. And now I'm convinced that this demand and this new wave of dual-use civil security will completely change the way how we use space.
Thank you so much. Anya, and from your perspective.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon. And thank you for this very interesting and important question. So I'm also talking as a scientist working for a European Space Agency, which is essentially a procurement agency. And since I work with the scientists and industry, I see it from more integrated perspective. So for me, there are 3 factors that stand out. First of all, connecting the scientific excellence and operational use. So the ability to create this excellent science that we have in Europe with actually end users and focus it operationally. This is one of the big challenges and important factors or milestones in order to develop or reach the security and resilience. Second, this is institutional collaboration or partnership, because the security does not understand institutional boundaries. So we really need to connect more the government institutions with research institutions and with other important stakeholders to work together, which with each of them contributing to progress. And third factor is autonomy and resilience. So to be able, as Europe, deliver end-to-end services. So not only supporting development, but also deploying the developed items and making it operational. So be able to, from scratch, develop, deploy, and use developments that enhance operational decision-making process. So when those three factors come into place, we will be really independent and we will be able to support operational independent decision-making.
Thank you so much. And Gema, now from your perspective.
Hello. Thank you again for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here and to talk to all of you. And I think for this first question, I don't want to stand too much because you say fast. And I think all my colleagues already give the main points which I agree totally, that it's not only about the technology, it's also about how you collaborate to implement this technology among all the actors that are related to this space, and consider that this element that it seems very far away from us is really integrated in our daily lives. For me, working at the European Union Satellite Center is our main asset, the main tool that we have to support decision makers in a daily way. So the space in the real life, it's very important and is even affecting us even if we are not aware of that. So the cooperation between all the actors, the implementation of the latest technology that provides us this resilience, autonomy that is really important, as you can see in the world that we are moving in nowadays, and to have this insight for the really politicians and the decision makers at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Gema. And Kasia, it's difficult to be the last one.
Exactly. Nevertheless, thank you for having me. What I could add to what my colleagues have already said, I think access to funding is one of the key elements, because you can have a really fantastic innovation, but if you're not able to finance it, coming from the lab and getting it to be commercialized, then nothing's going to happen. So to add to everything that was said, I think access to funding is one of the key elements.
Thank you so much. So there is money, partnership, technology, all is very important. All of these aspects play a key role. So at Frontex, as I mentioned, we are relying more and more on space technologies because it's bringing to us a lot of security, and we are dealing with sensitive information, with sensitive data. We are monitoring the EU external borders that require security aspects, and we need to understand what is happening across vast and complex borders. So let me bring this aspect a bit into this conversation, and we will start, Gema, with you, and concerning the technologies, because how do you see the latest Earth observation trends like hyperspectral or artificial intelligence analytics, new constellations that are just growing like mushrooms, how they are reshaping the SatSense role in supporting the decision makers and secure operations, like, for example, those performed by Frontex?
Yes, it's very relevant that you make this question, because we are changing dramatically the scenario that we have in an operational environment, supporting, like you say, Frontex, that we have a very strong collaboration with you and any other international organizations and member states. Why? Because we are having more and more data. Nowadays, the availability of data is not the issue as years ago. We have many satellite constellations that provide nowadays more and more images that allow us to make this analysis more in-depth. But where the trends and the technology should go also is first in how to consume this data in a faster and more operational and effective way. So there is the role with the latest technology, with artificial intelligence and computing science, analytics, should support us in not giving like snapshots of information, but we need to move forward to the real-time support and also to be more proactive. So once you have the data and the analytics, we will be more ready to be given the situational awareness that we need in Europe, mainly for security and defense. And this is one of the main important topics, because so we have the data availability, we have the technology through the artificial intelligence, and we have like new sensors, as you mentioned, the hyperspectral. This gives us also new solutions. We have new tools to detect new things that we were able not to see from a space before. And this opens a new challenge for the analysts and new opportunities to support in our daily work, giving this spatial intelligence and information support for the decision making.
Yeah, indeed, with hyperspectral, when I read recently that you can actually detect the source, like from where the paint is coming on a vessel, so you could see if the paint is on the vessel is from Russia, Poland, or wherever. I find it really impressive, and indeed, day by day we are changing. The technology is changing a lot and very fast. Thank you very much, Gema. And now, Anya, so how do you see the European Space Agency's evolving Earth observation and resilience capabilities, aligning with the need of governments and security across actors today?
So regarding Earth observation, in general, we are seeing today a significant shift from simply delivering the data, already what was said before, to providing interpretation and processing of the data to support the decision-making process. And indeed, European Space Agency plays a big part here. Its Earth observation program is developed more and more into this direction. So the data sets, providing the data sets to the broader communities for science or governments or institutional stakeholders is not enough. So evolving development AI technologies or technologies supporting processing the data and supporting the decision-making process in near real time is at utmost importance. But this is as much of a priority as the resilience and autonomy. This is something that was also said before, but could not be repeated too much. Because autonomy secures the stability of our services. So this is probably right now top one or one of the top 3 priorities in the European Space Agency to become resilient and autonomous. So today the security is less about providing data, it's more about making something out of informed or trusted information to support the decision-making process.
Thank you very much. It's very important indeed to have made in EU technologies more and more. And now, Justyna, this is a pretty challenging question maybe. So I would like to ask you if the public institutions, according to you, are equipped to rely on commercial space providers in crisis situation.
Well, my short answer is no. Because, and especially not on innovative startups and, the leading innovation. And there are many reasons for that. So imagine that you are police or fire brigade or rescue services. All of a sudden, a couple of years ago, there were so many new challenges that you had to face: COVID, migration, war in Ukraine, now the real risk of cyber attacks and even physical attacks that we can have here. And the public procurement processes are as they are. They are long, they are slow, they are complex. And so in the past, we had time to process them and to buy services in some time, let's say, in a normal pace. But in the current situation, we have to accelerate because we have to be ready, we have to be prepared. And so the public institutions, the rescue services, they are trying to deploy innovations, but on one hand, the processes are not ready. And on the other hand, also we need to understand that they cannot take a big risk. Like when we work with startups, for example, they have amazing technology. They are usually faster, they are usually delivering really great innovation, but there is a risk. So this innovation is normally tested in lab, or there is a prototype, but they don't normally have like serial production, or they are not able to guarantee that this product or service will work 100% of the time. So who will take this risk? So there is this gap, and this gap exists. But I'm very happy to see that there are movements in the market that help this. So all the acceleration programs that are delivered by NCBR, but also on European level by UDIS, by Cassini, really help to bring the startups to the sufficient level of maturity, and also to bring the network of the end users that would be very difficult to be connected with the startup innovation ecosystem. So I think that there is a big, big improvement. We are not there yet, but there is a big improvement.
Okay, so now looking at Kasia from European Investment Bank, are we ready to close the gap? So how do you see the different funding pathways like equity, guarantees, or some thematic instruments enabling innovators to enter and indeed to speed up this process of commercialization?
Yes, so there are a lot of instruments that the European Union has put in place to support the financing process of breakthrough startups. The first one, so to speak, in the development stage is the European Innovation Council. And within this program, there are 3 different instruments targeting startups in innovative projects at different TRL levels. So there is the Pathfinder and Transition programs that provide non-dilutive grant funding up to €4 million for deep tech breakthrough startups. And then for a little older companies at TRL 6 and above, there is the EIC Accelerator that provides both equity and grants. And the equity is executed through the EIC funds. So these are direct equity investments. The EIC becomes a shareholder in the startups, and here the funding for the grant part is up to €2.5 million and up to 10 million euro in equity investments, with up to 30 million euro in the scale-up, in the STEP program, and with the new Scale-up for Europe fund being currently set up, the tickets will be tens of millions of euro and above. So there are a lot of funding instruments from the very beginning of the development process up until the commercialization and scale-up within the EIC program. Then there is EIB, who has a dedicated 500 million euro Space Tech EU facility, and this is only funding for space companies active in the space area. And also the European Investment Fund. They don't have specific instruments targeting the space. However, they do invest as a fund of funds into venture capital firms that are active in the space area. And also EIF supports the country-level initiatives, and their part of the funding is also dedicated for space development. So quite a lot of different instruments depending on where the technology is and how close to commercialization.
Fantastic. So we see there are opportunities still. We have to work all together in partnership to fill in all the gaps existing in financing, but also pushing the innovators to access this funding, because I think this is also, it's always working on both sides, that there are opportunities, but there must be someone who's taking the opportunity. Fantastic. So now, Anya, I have a question to you when it comes actually to this partnership, because there is a lot of information, news related to the European Space Agency Center in Poland that will be linked to security. And how do you see, what potential do you see for this new center of European Space Agency in Poland to change how Europe approaches the space-enabled security?
Yeah, that's indeed a trending topic, both in Poland and also in the European Space Agency. And for those who are not familiar with this organization, this is basically an international organization, which means it has member states, and many of those member states are hosts for centers of different centers of European Space Agency. And one of those centers indeed is going to be built or created in Poland. And in my opinion, it will close a very major gap, because each of the European Space Agency centers do some kind of development. But since the European Resilience for Space program is a relatively new program, it does have already a lot of support in Belgian centers. It hasn't been focused so far on dual technologies, of effective development dual technologies, which requires to integrate all of those three factors I mentioned at the very beginning. So not only it can be a central hub for such a procurement activities end-to-end, so from development to operational deployment, but also it can be a hub for integrating all of those centers of European Space Agency, fish those technologies, and making deployable. So there is a huge potential there. Poland has definitely a lot to offer, but also since I've been living in Germany for 10 years now, and every time I come here, it's more and more international, more and more diverse. And it can be also a great center for the international community to draw here international community, to draw here companies, and to help the sector grow, at the same time increasing the resilience, autonomy, and security of Europe.
We cannot wait to host the center. Hopefully, in the coming weeks, the decision which city will it be located will be taken. So looking forward to that. Thank you, Anya. And now question to Gema. So we were talking about this sovereignty, classification, security, sensitivity of information, and I've learned that SATSEN is dealing it on daily basis. So how you actually approach the balance between the classification of the data, the constraints that the security is bringing very often, and the need for timely and actionable intelligence that has to be right now, right here in the field.
Even if it's on, it's not working. This is a challenge of of our work, not only for SATSEN, for the space, of course, because these are the three pillars that you need to provide this information on your spatial intelligence, let's say. You need this sovereignty classification and this timeliness. What it means, you need the sovereignty. You need to have, you need to be, if possible, that we are working now on, to be the owner of your own data. If you are depending on someone else to give you the Earth observation data or any other data, you cannot be giving the proper answer. If you don't have, if you have an open classification, like say when we are talking about classification, is yes to the concept of the need to know and to classify some information that cannot go to the public itself, because it's important in the process of the decision making, mainly in crisis that you can imagine. So this is another pillar that is important, that gives you advantage in the process of taking a decision. And the timeliness, when you have a question and you give the answer too late, is not longer useful anymore. So you have these three pillars that are really important in our daily work, and you have to manage to find this objective and how to deal. And the key, I can say, that is maybe the governance and the technology. So you have to be very clear in all your process to manage that all these workflows go very fast and give you the possibility to fulfill these three gaps or three challenges that you have. And this is what we are doing in our daily basis at SATSEN, at least. You can say that we produce more than 100 products per week, 6,000 products per year, all directed to different sources, and all fulfilling these three main chapters that we were mentioned. And I think these are the two pillars, no? The clear governance, agreement on the rules, that's what it means, and also support our work in a good technology to finalize all the work that we are doing.
Indeed, because the data has to be timely for operations and in crisis situations especially, and these processes related to security should support us and not slow us down, because sometimes information is needed right here at the certain moment. But also what we've learned at Frontex is that space technologies, the best crisis is the one that never happens. So actually we are using space technologies a lot for prevention, for situations to predict, to forecast, to see before something happens. And I think this is the beauty of space and the space data, that actually it can be done. And now, going back to Justyna, that is the head of entrepreneurship at Women in Aerospace Association. So actually, how do you see the role of startups and small companies, small SMEs even, in shaping the space security? So how it looks in the European market?
Mm-hmm. I would like to give maybe first some overview of what is the role of startups in general in the space technologies, because in the last years there was a real revolution in that field. A couple of years ago I was working at the European Union Agency for the Space Programs, and we were setting up a program for startups, for entrepreneurship. Within 3 years, 700 startups were supported. So it is not a minor part of the market. In reality, in space tech, I would say that now we have maybe 1,000 companies that are really well developing startups. And not only startups that are trying to do something, but startups that own their own satellite infrastructure. We have startups that have their own satellites that provide data and provide services. And in this context, I believe that startups being innovative and normally being faster than big corporations can play a very important role. And this role I see in three areas, the main three areas of space services, so in navigation, in Earth observation, and in satellite communication. This is what we can do on Earth. So we need to have, in crisis situation, reliable positioning and navigation, reliable communication, and let's remember that in the crisis situations, we cannot rely on the ground infrastructure. Normally, this is the first one that is not working. Even when we had the flooding in the southern Poland, it was not possible to rely on the ground infrastructure for electricity, for telecommunication, and so on. So in that case, satellites are far away and they always work. And this is something that is really amazing. And so this is what we can do on Earth, these three types of services. But we can also use the infrastructure in orbit directly for civil security. I know startups that have satellites that are able to sense in the atmosphere already chemical substances, biological substances. So if there is a weapon deployed, they are able to sense it within 15 minutes and make a warning on Earth. Because as you are saying, the best crisis is the one that never happens. So if we can do more for prevention, this is really something where I see also the innovation ecosystem really leading the way.
Yeah, but it's amazing. 700 startups sounds good, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be growing. So, in general, as border authorities, we see the role of partnership and cooperation. We have actually cooperation here with all of you. And actually, Kasia, the question is to you. So, what kind of partnerships or governance model or even cultural shifts do you believe could unlock the next wave of European space innovation?
I think coming back to my first comment about the funding gap, I think the partnership between the private and public investors is something that could really push the innovation forward, because a lot of the great inventions are stuck because they don't have funding. And both the public and private investors are too afraid to make the investments because this is the nature of innovations. A lot of them fail, and this is just a part of the process. So there's no great innovation, there's no great change between the risk. So if I could pinpoint one thing, I think it would be more risk acceptance by the funding institutions, both on the public and the private side.
Thank you so much. We have many brave women here, so to lower the risk, I'm sure it's possible. And let's work all together on that. So now we will look ahead a bit. So as we look to the future, and for us, the question for border management is clear. How do we use space not only to observe, but also to anticipate and to build resilience, and how it will evolve to support us more? Because we are developing technologies. It's growing. There are new companies. There are new funding sources, new mechanisms to support this innovation. But let's do not forget that the other side, the criminals, are also very active, and they don't have these procurement processes. So we have to actually catch up or even be several steps ahead. And that's why, looking in the future, Gema, maybe for the question to you, how do you see the Earth observation or positioning, navigation, timing, secure connectivity changing the way that also the border authorities, but not only the civil security ones, could understand and respond to the events on the ground? How do you see this could evolve and potentially change?
I think you mentioned before, I think the key is to be with this situational awareness and to be prepared in advance. So we have to change the model to be reactive, to be the reactive mode to a proactive mode. And this will be based on the advance on the technology, as we mentioned, more satellite, more sensors, more constellations from one side, and then the effectiveness of the agile workflows created with the artificial intelligence, not forgetting the validation from the human eye. Because also we see that we have the technology and everything that is helping a lot, but it's not always right. So in our, in our world, when you have boots on the ground, we cannot allow to have these errors, let's say. So for the future, it's also important not to forget the human factor inside all this equation, because it's important, and we are talking finally about people. So let's change for this proactive way, using the technology to be into the analysis of the data and be more proactive. Once we are supporting, for example, the border surveillance with you in Frontex, we try to predict before it happens something, where are the places where the smuggling are going to be placed. And we have many factors to analyze and to reach this possible position that helps you to put down the measures to go onto the ground and then limit and be more effective afterwards. So I think this is the key factor that we have to focus. No, thanks to the the increase of data and the use of new technologies, change to a more proactive mode.
And actually, a curiosity, because we read more and more about the deep fakes images, so actually that could mislead the end user easily, because you ask for a satellite image of certain crossing at the border, let's say, and it is manipulated. Have you already experienced these situations when working with the images as analyst as well?
Not for the moment. That's why we need this source of information, because we can be sure that our source is reliable, So that's why we make the analysis. It's true that we use collateral information and other source that could be fake, and that's what we have to be very careful, which is the source that we are making the analysis. But that's why we are there, because the satellite imagery with our providers, we are ensuring that the information that we are giving is real. And the world we are living today, with all the high-risk threats and disinformation, it's a key role, because if not, as you see an explosion in a port and maybe it's fake. So that's why we have to go and validate and see if this information is valid or not. So yeah, it's quite relevant, let's say, nowadays more and more.
So the trusted source is of a key importance here indeed. And maybe, Anya, question to you when it comes to European Space Agency, when looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunities for space services, how we can strengthen the operational awareness or resilience? What are the priority projects or some roadmap European Space Agency see in this domain?
That's a very complex question. Because of course the priority for, or the, let's say, the speciality of European Space Agency is integration. So working with all the important stakeholders and supporting the technological development from scratch until operational deployment is our speciality. However, there is still plenty of room for progress regarding fishing those technologies that could have dual use and could support security and resilience on borders for managing crisis or anticipating and preventing crisis situations in Europe. So fishing all those new technologies, and the Polish new ESA site could play such a major role here, but also to maximize the transferability of space systems that were already developed. And we are talking about ESA programs, obvious programs like Earth observation, but we are also talking about programs like the one I'm working with, which means Human Spaceflight Program. And there are so many similarities between how we manage human factor in space and how we manage human factors on the ground where mass situations happened, war zones, where humans need to not only survive but also thrive. So transferability of those technologies, hopefully with support with the Polish new center, would be of utmost importance and in great support of European resilience and security. However, I have to say that there are also risks. And there was the discussion on AI. So this is one of the major opportunities and risks that I see, which we need to be aware and also invest enough time to making sure that those technologies are reliable, because AI is only as good as the data that we feed it, so that it lands on. And we know from terrestrial applications like women's health, and I need to say it in this community, in this event, or vehicle safety, that women data underrepresented in data sets that we learn from can introduce biases. So we need to also develop technologies with this main focus that those technologies are without gaps, unbiased, responding to needs of the populations that are diverse and that needs us the most.
Yeah, indeed, very good point. Thank you very much. And I see 0-0, so time is over. But thank you very much for this rich and very interesting discussion. I have a million more questions, but that's it for today. So what we heard today is clear. The Europe has the scientific excellence, we have the operational demand, the entrepreneurial energy, and we have the investment capacity as well to lead actually the space-enabled civil security. But the challenge and at the same time the opportunity lies in connecting these strengths faster, in a bold way, and also with shared sense of responsibility. So thank you to all our speakers, thank you to the audience, amazing, and let's continue building a Europe where space truly strengthens our security, resilience, and strategic autonomy for our home Europe. Thank you very much.